Ramesar, and I'm very pleased to say my guest today is a first-time guest on the program, Atiba Phillips, who's the chairman of iGovTT. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Vernon.
Thank you very much for being here. We're going to be talking about the National ICT Consultations and Conference, but before that, let's get to the basics. iGovTT.
Yes.
Most of us know the name, but aren't really familiar with what it's all about.
Right. So iGovTT is a state company that was created in 2009. Then it reported to the Ministry of Public Administration. And the mandate of the company is to be in charge of government's enterprise-wide ICT projects and to advise and consult with ministries with regard to ICT implementation for government. So that's its original mandate. It's sort of grown a little bit. We get into other things like policy, national ICT policy, which is what we're talking about in today. We also have been asked to opine in terms of e-business and sector development and so forth. And sometimes when companies come into Trinidad and Tobago and so on, give the government some technical advice and due diligence on some things. So that's the core remit in terms of e-government and national policy and sometimes e-business.
It sounds fairly simple, but it's a huge net that you're sort of throwing out, isn't it?
Yes, indeed, indeed. It is. The issue of ICT is a pervasive issue. It is not confined to any one thing or any one sector. In fact, it is one of those things like water or electricity or something that is inside of everything. And if you're talking, things like knowledge-based society and diversification of the economy and so on, ICT is an enabler of all things, of all sectors. You can't think of the banking sector, for example, without ICT. You will not be able to think of the energy sector in terms of geoseismic imaging and so on without ICT and the storage of large amounts of data and the mining of that data and so on. You would not be able to think about even academia in terms of sharing research and so on without technology. It's not fathomable at this time. So all developing countries and all nations around the world are trying to see how best they can leverage and invest in ICT for development, for economic and social development. And that's what the plan is about. We're in the midst now of revising the National ICT Plan for Trinidad and Tobago for the next 5 years. And that's exactly what we're talking about.
Of course, you've got a bit of a challenge, of course, because even large members of the population don't even know what ICT is.
Right, so information and communication technologies. Yeah, so those are the technologies that range everything from even radios, broadcasting technologies, traditional communication, telecommunication type technologies, all the way to end user things like cell phones and computers. And so it's the convergence of communication technology as well as core IT, networking and routers and switches and so on, as well as the end user devices that have become so popular these days.
It would seem to me that we're pretty good at more of the conventional means of communication and technology, but when it comes to leveraging the power of the internet, we've lagged a bit behind for many years, haven't we?
Yeah,
and why is that?
So only in maybe 2006 was there the promulgation of the Telecommunications Act, which effectively began the liberalization of the telecommunications sector, which in fact meant that persons like Flow and Digicel and some of the other competitors have come in and have been able, and there are now 42, I think, radio stations. And so there's been an explosion, actually, of activity in the telecommunications sector, which has shown itself on the rankings for Trinidad and Tobago. In fact, we've jumped in the last 3 to 4 years about 22 places in the rankings. So, and a lot of that has been...
That's good to hear, because we're dropping down a number of other rankings.
A number of other rankings, indeed. So in fact, so a lot of good work has happened, particularly in the connectivity side of things. What we need to do now is focus some more effort on the innovation side of things, and the uptake and usage and how do you cause that basic platform of connectivity to redound to betterment in people's lives. So services, e-services from government and from business, various types of applications and innovations which make persons more productive in their work life, as well as allow sharing of information for research and so on, and social applications as well in terms of lifestyle.
What's the key back in terms of government ministries, for example, making more things accessible via e-services? It seems many of them still have they'll have a form, but you print the form and then take it in manually.
Well, I mean, there are a number of keepbacks. Some technology is one of them, which is not really a keepback, actually. Well, technology is one of them, but beyond that, budget, I think, is one of them. Being in the chairman's seat now at iGovTT, I recognize that, you know, even though there's a high prioritization of ICT as far as policy goes, ICT is in fact one of the 7 sustainable development pillars. In terms of budgetary allocation compared to some other things, it really is minuscule in terms of the amount that is provisioned for it. If you look at the...
Well, that's kind of backward thinking, though, isn't it? When you think about it, because if you use ICT to get information across to the public, for example, through ministries, it's much cheaper and more efficient than having people going out in the field.
Yes, indeed. And so, again, from where we sit, you know, sometimes we have all things in place in terms of we've done the business requirements for the ministry or whatever, the hardware and software is available in its components, but then to put it together, there's a budgetary requirement on an additional piece of equipment or whatever that's required. And it's not in the budget, and we don't have the cash. And so governance is another issue. So outside of budget, there's another thing, you know, there are public service codes, right? For example, that govern how data is shared. Can a ministry that has received data from the citizens for a particular purpose share that now with another ministry to enhance its delivery of service for the same citizens or for other citizens in different situations? So there's a data protection piece of legislation that governs that that hasn't been fully promulgated as yet, because there's a requirement for a data commissioner, right, which is an institution that says if you feel that your data has been misused for any way, you can come to this institution and get redress, kind of thing.
So you're saying something like if somebody has some interaction with the Ministry of Health about a personal medical condition,
for example,
you don't want that passed along to
the insurance company,
exactly,
or
where it may affect your employability.
Exactly, or to even your employer, even if you're part of government. So there needs to be strong sort of Chinese walls in between these things, but at the same time, we need to be able to share information in order to serve the public, right? Because if you're going to do a service to any citizen, that service may require more than one ministry to be involved. So if you're going to, as I gave if you're going to change your name, you need to check with the criminal database and national security. You're going to have to check with legal affairs and the population database to show that you exist, birth and death records and so on. And you're going to you maybe have to pay something, so that's Ministry of Finance. So you have to interface with 3 ministries to do this one service, but you don't really care about that.
As the end user.
As the end user, as the citizen, you just want your service. So the back end, the ministries need to sort out how do we coordinate with each other in order to make the citizen the center of our focus, rather than the public service processes or what other things, which are fine and good for transparency and have been set up over time for certain purposes. But we're looking at citizen services now, and how do we leverage all of across ministries, collaborate and so on, to have one, so that when you go into a new ministry and you give your name, then they have an ability to get access to your account basically, and they'll say, oh yes, we gave you X, Y, and Z the last date, here's your current balance, and here's some other things that we might be able to do for you. So that's where we want to get to.
So you have that long-term goal, but now I guess are you in the sort of short-term dealing with much more basic things at this point?
Well, in fact, this is the second ICT plan that the government is going to attempt or going to put in. There was one back in 2003, which was a connectivity agenda. So that one focused on connecting schools and government departments and libraries, and it also focused on that liberalization of the telecom sector, which we talked about earlier, to bring in new competition and to drive down the prices of broadband and to give more services and so on. A lot of that stuff has been done. So this one really focuses on human capital development and innovation. So really, how do we use that technology and that connectivity that we actually do have to leverage it to create new products and new services and new applications that bring societal and economic benefit. So that's the focus of the current.
I suppose in a small nation such as ours, it really is something that's very important, isn't it? Because you can be a small country. Israel comes to mind, of course, immediately. That has really done some amazing stuff in the ICT sector. Absolutely. That has launched them onto the world stage. Yeah,
so I mean, there are a number of examples of that. There's Malta, Finland, Singapore, a lot of the Nordic states, like Switzerland and Norway, and so on. Those countries have done a fantastic job. Estonia is another one. So you can leverage ICT, particularly as a small island developing nation, where your competitive advantage is not in your ability. You don't have a whole huge market. You don't have a large land space. You don't have a lot of the traditional competitive factors, but you do have human ingenuity. You can leverage, and in fact, I believe that this is probably one of the few sustainable sectors that we're going to have. You know, they talk about creative sectors, and ICT underpins, undergirds all of those kinds of activity, and it also allows you to connect with a market almost immediately. You know, so through some of these social networking sites, things that happen in Trinidad are being discussed all over the world. The same way the businesses, for good or bad, correct. Businesses that have products that are originating in Trinidad can be sold all over the world, and you can connect with diaspora. So you can have that, that dividend, instead of it being a brain drain, you can turn it into a positive thing, because those persons actually have a higher purchasing power than some of the folks locally. So you can actually target your diaspora all over the world.
And also the idea of setting up an internet storefront is so much cheaper.
Yes.
Than actually setting up a real store.
So when we're talking about issues like entrepreneurship and so on, and we're trying to get young people involved in business, I mean, ICT is instead of trying to build a building and have an office and buy all of the equipment and accoutrement, you can, with your computer and a fast internet connection, do quite a lot and interact with your virtual team. They don't have to be sitting down next to you. So you can interact with your virtual team within your company, and you can also leverage the capabilities of other companies in other jurisdictions to deliver on products. So that's at a firm level, at a company level, and to encourage entrepreneurship and so on, that you can really, ICT is the tool of choice, particularly for younger folks.
In terms of our national capacity in that area, are we where we should be in terms of trained personnel?
Okay, so I think that we are starting to get there. I think that a lot of there are a lot of business management courses that have an IT slant on them. There's a lot of training there has been over time a lot of training in technical areas, MCSC, Microsoft, Technician Plus, that kind of thing. I think though that some of the areas that we're not so up on are some of the more strategic areas in terms of ICT. At least in my experience, we have fair enough people who can do the networking and some of the software stuff, but pulling it all together for the benefit of the organization or even of the government. Some of those strategic folks who will be able to tell traditional business and government folks, I know that this is what you've been doing all along. I know that this is your objective. Here's how ICT will help you leverage to take you to a whole other place. I think that is something that we can work on.
And in terms of things like web design, which is such an important
I believe that there are a lot of web designers out there. Some of them are self-taught. Some of them have been...
And it shows sometimes.
And it shows sometimes. No, but I think the software industry in general is an area that we have an opportunity to diversify into. I think that we're talking about diversification, we're talking about employment and giving people jobs and so on. ICT is one of those areas where you have high-paying jobs. If you're a good PHP developer, if you're a good .NET developer, so on, and you can really create some good online properties, then you're going to get paid quite a bit. And
but that's an inherent danger of the business as well, isn't it? Because word spreads quickly if you are good at PHP developing, for example, and next thing you know, you get a call from Google because it's become an international global marketplace for capabilities.
Right, but again, if it is that we got ourselves together and we understood the priority of ICT from an economic standpoint now, and we were looking to grow a sector, I think a lot of those folks who are coming out of school and who have been around in the environment but not really, they're sort of underemployed, would love that. And in fact, you may begin to reverse some of that brain drain because you have opportunities for the people with skills here in Trinidad and Tobago. And then you can create and leverage platforms that service other nations as well. And that's one of the things that we're actually up to at iGovTT. In the e-government space, we've created a national consultations platform. So for the first time, I think in the history of doing this, We have an online platform where people can go online and interact with the plan, give comments. It's a moderated feed, so not all of the comments make it out to the front.
Right.
And that platform can be used for consultations for anything. So, if you wanted to have a gender policy consultation or a youth policy consultation, whatever, you can use that same platform.
So it's an amazing tool for democracy in that sense, isn't
that's
it?
right. So it's an e-democracy platform. In fact, what we want to do is to continue to build on it. One of the applications is an e-mentoring application. So where you have significant persons in society, the Prime Minister, or the Minister, other sector personnel, can interact with certain populations, for example, girls, and to talk about politics and how to take civic duty and engagement on and so on, and other types of mentoring in that regard online. The other place that we want to take it is to so when people have big announcements, so for government, for the citizens to be aware of what government is up to, and be able to possibly post comments and surveys and so forth, so that the government is really taking, to the extent that there's a critical mass of usage, you can even take somewhat of empirical evidence now. So many people have said that they want or don't want this thing, so that there's a greater ability to have an opinion, and an opinion that is recorded on what government is doing, rather than just talk about it in the barber shop and in the hairdresser shop. So those are some of the things that we're doing, and we're doing it for Trinidad and Tobago, but there's no reason why Barbados or Jamaica or any other country couldn't leverage the same platform for its own purposes.
It all sounds very brave new world, but in fact there are actual examples of that being done in other parts of the world.
No, absolutely. I mean,
are we out there observing other countries and visiting them to see how they implement their policy?
Yeah. I think that even right now there's some folks from Singapore who are on board with us as consultants, helping us to build up our own capacity within iGovTT. I think that there's quite a lot of exchange in respect of ministers going and coming and other people coming as well. I think though that there needs to be coming together of minds in terms of, this thing is doable. We have some of the skill sets and the people here in Trinidad and Tobago to make it happen. We don't always need, so while we look outside, we want to make homegrown applications and indigenous uses of the technology that serve our particular ends. So we can go out and observe all sorts of things, but we come back home and decide here's what's best for us. So I think that's happening. It's happening slowly. I think in the last reshuffle, the wisdom of the government to create a science and technology ministry. So there's a focus now on those matters, and so I think it's happening. So, and the plan, of course, is what else do we need to do to ensure that it happens? How do we measure? Did it happen? Did it not happen? Do we say who are the roles and who have the roles and responsibilities to do which things, so that in a deemed amount of time we've come to these outcomes?
I mean, it should be something that the government should put a high priority on, because I think Trinities, it's safe to say, have taken to the internet like ducks to water.
No, I agree. I
mean, it's really remarkable how people live their lives almost completely on the internet nowadays.
Well, the thing is, though, that
we still have a penetration problem, don't we, in terms of how many people have access?
Actually, from the figures, we're not doing too badly. The figures say that, the World Economic Forum figures say that we're number 14 in respect of internet tariffs, meaning the price of internet broadband. It says that we're number 1 in terms of mobile network coverage in terms of the entire country. And in general, the telecom part of the indices are not bad. The parts of the indices that are quite bad are the capacity for innovation, the tertiary enrollment, interestingly, some of the areas. We're moving from an efficiency economy, according to the World Economic Forum, into an innovation economy. So the innovation things, the things about creating content, application services, those are the things that we need to focus on, and the plan focuses on over the next period.
Why do we fall down so often when it comes to innovation? We're such an innovative people in so many other areas.
Well, innovation...
We stick within a certain safety.
Innovation is driven by research and development in many cases. It's driven by the interaction between industry and academia, right? and government and academia as well. So those are some of the linkages that are not technology specific, but
they're cultural.
They're cultural, right? And so
because we don't have companies here allocating a certain percentage to R&D,
exactly.
whereas that is standard across the rest of the world.
Exactly. And there isn't really, in a formal sense, government R&D labs, for example, like there is in the US. So we're moving towards that. So there are research institutions in various sectors like Kariri and Kadi and Nehurst and so on. And then to the extent that these different research institutions really share knowledge and so on, and then get that knowledge out to their stakeholder base. If you're an agriculture research organization, are the farmers and the poultry folks and the agriculturalists really benefiting from the research, which might be great research, but is that information sharing thing happening? And then what do we do with it after we do the research? Does it stay in a cupboard, or do we put whatever's the funding, for example, or other arrangements which are also required to make it blossom?
I think I remember when the former food production minister, Vernon Ramesar, took office, he said there's so much information that we've gathered as a ministry, but nobody knows about it because it's gathered and just kept in a vault somewhere.
And so those are the things, those are the things that really are going to make the difference now. And as I said, that's why this plan is leading with human capacity development and innovation as the key focal point. And then some of the other things that are more traditional, infrastructure, e-government, e-business, bridging the digital divide, access and digital inclusion. Those are some of the things as well that we're looking at.
I mean, you have a very impressive resume. Do you think this is a job that will be the most frustrating to you, even as it may be the most challenging?
It has been quite challenging. My substantive post is a consultant in this field, an ICT strategist. And so it's sort of, you have a sense of what needs to be done. Getting it done is a whole other story. But I think we're making progress, slow but we're making progress. And I think this is a big milestone in terms of, we've started this process of consultation since March. And we've done consultations, 2 in the north, 2 in central, 2 in south, 1 in Tobago over 2 days. And we've done one-on-one stakeholder meetings with various government ministries and other entities, also in Tobago. We formed specialized working groups according to the themes of the plan and gotten expert feedback. We put it online. So we've done a lot of various, we've engaged a number of mechanisms in order to get feedback. And now this is the final sort of, here's what we've heard from everybody and here's what our own thinking is and so on.
So this is all going towards shaping the master strategy.
That's right. And so once we get the validation and our feedback from over the next few days, it's at Hyatt from tomorrow, Wednesday, July 11th and 12th. Once we get the feedback, we are going to then, update the plan that we have, tie it up in a nice, bow, and send it off with our minister to cabinet and parliament where it will be debated and so forth. And then once that is the case, we will then get the budget and the mandate to go out and actually implement along the lines of the plan.
You must be somewhat worried because we have a history in this country of doing wonderful consultations and gathering all the information relevant that we need, passing it to cabinet, and it just sits there.
Well, I think that government is aware of, and again, in the government's own sustainable development pillars, ICT is pillar number 4, and knowledge-based economy is pillar number 5. And so I think the government is aware of the priority, and I have every confidence that we all see the need, and it's in everybody's benefit to make this thing happen, and I expect it will.
Do you think we'll be seeing monetization nationally of the whole idea of ICT in this country in the short, medium, or long term?
I think we're already seeing some of it. I think that we can see a whole lot more of it if we do some of the things that we need to do. For example, on the telecom side, I don't know if you know that the way that we do the internet now, that a lot of the bits and bytes of telecom data switches in the US.
From Miami, I think it is.
In Miami, yeah. Correct. So that part of your internet bill is TSCT paying other...
Flow, actually, I think, Columbus Communications, yeah.
Right, whoever, paying other providers to switch onto their networks so that it can make that loop to Miami and come back. So one of the things that we've been talking about for a while is something called an internet exchange point locally, so that local to local traffic doesn't have to go out and come back in. That saves money. The more that you use the internet, the more that it saves you.
Yeah, people don't realize that. If you type in a government ministry's website on a TT domain, it still will go out to a DNS server somewhere.
Yeah, it'll go. Particularly if you're on a different internet service provider. So some of those things are not required, and so again, the infrastructure side of the plan talks about additional data centers locally. It talks about how we do exchange of traffic. It talks about some of those other, mirroring content on the internet and root servers and all of that. So it talks about some of those issues that are going to help the internet become more responsive, cheaper, faster, and encourage the development of local content.
Well, Atiba Phillips, chairman of iGovTT, it's safe to say you are the future. So I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Great.
You've been watching One on One. Join us again tomorrow for another edition.